Hi, good morning, everybody, and thanks for joining this call hosted by Amazon Web Services and Nuclear Software. My name is Nilanshu Khaldar, and I'm responsible for financial services partnerships across Asia Pacific for Amazon Web Services, based in Singapore. And it's my pleasure to introduce Sarbarpreet Anand, who's my co-presenter and will take you through most of this presentation today. Sarbarpreet is a vice president and the global head of the cloud business at Nuclear Software, one of the leading software companies in the space. And I would request Sarbarpreet to take over and start the presentation.
Thank you, Nilanshuk. I really see wonderful audience registered on this webinar. Welcome, everybody. I'm sure we are going to learn and unlearn quite a few things today. Over the next 15 minutes, I'm going to share a story with you all. There are no prizes for guessing it. The main hero of my story is NBFC, as you can see on my screen. This NBFC started with a very, very humble beginning, remained unnoticed for around a decade or so. They were misunderstood for another few years. Then they really picked up like a hero. I just want to share some data with you all as far as NBFCs are concerned. Look at the first two numbers, 7.5 trillion asset size with a growth of 21.2%. This shows really fantabulous growth. However, when organizations grow that fast, their asset quality takes a hit. But if you see the next two figures, NBFC surprises you over there also, which really demonstrates good governance and controls. Excuse me. If this was not enough, I must mention they have really understood their customer segment very well, come out with innovative products, reached where no one else dared to reach, not even their big brother. Yes, I'm talking about banks. They are on a real growth trajectory. Now, here's the question. Is this the pinnacle? I really don't think so. I believe there is a storm coming, and I mean, no prizes for guesses. It's not ILFS, frankly. It's storm of opportunities. Let me share some data with you all, and this is like data from Big Four, and this is not like my data. This is like published data all across. So if you see, there are 1.18 billion mobile subscribers in India. Of this, 450 million subscribers are smartphones. That's a huge number by any standard. 1.2 billion already have an Aadhaar account, which is almost the whole of population. Then we see 90% Indians have bank accounts. This is post Jan Dhan Yojana, which is a famous Yojana which was launched by Pradhan Mantri. We see 90 million online shoppers in India already, and this is growing really fast. This is already 10%, but I believe this is going to reach 20%, 30% very soon. I mean, you can see that digital transaction increase, and we see a huge reduction in ATM transactions. Another data point. This was personally surprising for me as well as very interesting one. 50% of loan seekers, they have their digital footprints. So So there's lot much to share in this area. 50 million GST filings, 29 million Beam downloads, 1 million e-signs, 17 million documents uploaded on digital locker, and so on and so forth. And another interesting data point: 50% of individuals in India are under credit bureau infrastructure, which is very encouraging from digital point of view. So what does this tell? This tells that Bharat is getting digital, not India. India was getting digital couple of years back. Today, Bharat is getting digital, the real Bharat. Now a question to ourselves: are we really ready for this digital storm? Let me frankly and honestly say over here, we are not. And a basic data point which I would like to share with you: 80% of NBFCs are still using primitive technology or even Excel. So they need to do something as far as digital storm is concerned. Let me share some thoughts on new age NBFCs. These are basically uh, there are 6 pillars which I've consolidated, and I'll start with the first one: customer experience. So basically, let me share something about myself. Few years back, I used to cook my favorite dish at home. Then started going to restaurants once a week. Mm, Earlier it was once a month and then once a week. Couple of years later, I started ordering on phone. Today I have 5 apps to order my favorite dish. Tomorrow I'm sure my favorite dish will come on its own to my home. They'll put some artificial intelligence over there. They'll see it's Friday, there's a cricket match, I have friends at my home, and the dish will come on its own. So this is the digital wave which is going to go across all industries. It has to be no human, no touch. Customer convenience is just a matter of past. I think customer luxury is something which is picking up like anything, and it would be a key driver. Let me share another pillar over here: governance. There's always a tussle between quality versus quantity. This is where men gets differentiated from boys, and this is an area where CEOs, investors, regulators, and everybody else will be watching very closely and very carefully. They're already doing that. And as quantity increases, as we go more digital, this will be an area of concern, an area of review. Third pillar: digital ecosystem. Over the last 5 years, India's stack is building up. You could see biometric, e-signs, bill automation, e-mandate, and so many other things. On the other hand, partnerships with ecosystem is a key element which is catching up. Let me share, and this is not just uh, India, it's all across the world. We see a lot of partnerships developing between telcos, cab operators, food chains, e-commerce sites. So a system sends a request to a telco, which gives a response, a scorecard, and then system sends a response, a request to another industry, like let's say cab operator. We get another score, and then the score is assimilated to give the scorecard, which indicates whether the money should be lent or not. So this is happening. This is catching up. This is like you'll see a wave, and you will see a lender who's non-digital will be outdated very soon. The fourth pillar is data. Let me mention over here, data is like is already a god, if not, and very soon it's going to catch up like anything. A lot of innovation is happening over here, whether it's AI, ML, organizations, irrespective of size, have already started hiring data scientists, or at least outsourcing this service, because uh, I mean, they are going to get redundant if they are not going to use data properly. Then comes cost of technology. This has to decrease. Negligible capex, low maintenance, no customization. Customization is already old school of thinking, frankly. Why should a FI get the solution customized and pay for it too? This is where configurable and parameterized products are setting in, and they are going to play a very big role over here. Then comes the last pillar, which is agility. Whether it is business launches, product launches, workflow changes, or any other configuration, it has to happen immediately. You can't have 6 months to 1 year cycles of implementations, or doing a lot of customization to launch your products. So how do we achieve this, frankly? This is where cloud-based solution can help. And let me share some views over here. I'm going to revisit each and every area mentioned before and how cloud-based offering helps. And we at Nucleus are carefully and diligently created our offering around these 6 pillars. Customer experience. Cloud-based products has to give complete control to prospects, DSAs, sales team, and even customer. There could be various modes, whether it is self-serving apps for prospects, apps for sales, DSAs, portals for prospects, customers. Objective over there would be to ensure that approvals are given time, if not before time, so a customer just gets his credit immediately. The next pillar, governance. Key controls of credit lifecycle, be it policies, rules, deviations, scorecards, NPA management, has to have has to be configured within the system. So that, and why so? Because people, I mean, error, frauds is going to be outdated totally, and if it is not happening to the system, investors will not flow in, frankly. Ecosystem. System architecture has to be open and completely service based. APIs has to hang out to ensure connection with ecosystem. Just giving few examples, which you can hear day in day out. PAN checks, KYC checks, credit bureaus, Perfios for bank statements, e-signs, and many more are possible only if system architecture supports it. And if you don't have an open architecture or APIs hanging around, this is like going to be extremely difficult. Data. As I said, we'll have data all around, and we have to have intelligence built over it. State-of-art analytics solution watches trends, builds model, and most importantly, it self-learn. The fifth pillar, cost of technology. In a cloud offering, capex is absolutely negligible, so that startups can also ensure all these 6 pillars through the system. There are innovative pricing models, there are roadmaps, product roadmaps, so there is no need to customize anything. You'll get upgrades every 6 months. Another important point is that Customer is nowadays not focusing on business. They want the complete IT ownership to be outsourced. They just want to focus on business. On the agility front, so system and business launches have to be immediate, as I said earlier. So we achieved sort of 2-day business launch, and I am going to share case studies around that also. Whether it is product launches, workflows, rules, policies, product schemes, promotions, and many more functions, they want to change, configure, and launch immediately. So I'm just requesting the moderator to open for a poll question, and you'll see some poll questions on your screen. Please answer those questions. I'll take a 15-second pause over here.
Please record your responses to this question. Once the poll is closed, we will also show the results. We'll give it a couple more seconds for everybody to record the responses. Okay, we are about to close the poll now. So these are the responses of the poll. 38% are saying that they have already adopted the cloud, and 21% are planning to adopt in 1 year. That's a very good kind of indicator that Indian NBFCs and HFCs are moving ahead with the cloud. Thank you, audience.
Thank you, Nitin. Thank you, Nitin. So I'm just going to share certain case studies over here. Am I going? I would like to start with Shubham first, who were the first one to adopt a cloud offering. They used to use very primitive. Sorry, Nitin. So I hope can you see my screen back? Just 1 second. We need to close this poll. Nilanchuk, I may need some help on closing this poll. I think people are still seeing the polls on their screen. Kanchan, Nilanchuk.
Hi, Sabarpreet. What we could do is have the second question in the poll right now, and that might make it smoother to go forward.
That's a good idea. Yeah.
So audience, we have the second question. If you would respond to this. We'll give it a couple more seconds for you to respond. So what do you think is the biggest advantage of cloud for your businesses? We are about to close the polls. Thank you. So here are the results of the poll. On-demand scalability takes the highest share, followed by agility, reduced cost, and time to market. Thank you, audience.
Yeah, I'm back. So sometimes technology does this also, frankly. So I'm going to share a use case with you as far as Shubham is concerned. Uh, mm, Shubham was the first one to adopt our cloud offering. Earlier, they were using primitive in-house system. Then they onboarded our cloud solution, very carefully designed and configured products, policies, rules, and models. Now you see they're giving loans to barbers, auto walas, chai walas, and so many others in affordable segment. And a very striking point over here, they have grown 5 times in the last 5 years. And you see a huge reduction in their application processing time and their approval time. Just taking another case of a startup. They are no more a startup. They were a startup a year back. They really dreamt row housing. They really dreamt big and innovative. Went for cloud-based solution on day one, even before they got the license. The key point to highlight over here is this in this activation that they consume 900 plus parameters, either input or taken from various sources. They build scorecards around these 900 parameters, and now they are able to approve a home loan within 2 hours. This is absolutely unheard of as far as home loans is concerned. I'll share another case study of SciPoint. This is actually an epitome of agility, frankly. They were using Excel originally for their loan management system. They moved to cloud-based solution because they felt that it's time they're reaching to a point that they should go for technology change. They launched the system in just 4 days. When I say launch, it means they got trained, they configured the system, they booked the first loan just in 4 days. And just for the record, it was not stopping over there. They booked 100 loans in just 7 days without any help. I'll take another case which shows the power of mobile solution, and this is in line with the digital story. In one of our implementations, there was 99% reduction in loan approval time. Just imagine how much more business they could do in the same time and resources. 50%, 15% reduction in sourcing cost per customer. Just imagine the dollars saved over there if you just multiply with your own customer base, either it is current or projected. So I'll pause over here and give the control to Nilanshuk to cover rest of the slides.
Thank you, Sarpreet. So that was, wow, really, a very interesting story of how different NBFCs are using modern technologies to grow their business. In fact, if I look at what are some of the advantages, I don't think I need to cover this slide because most of you seem very convinced given the results of the poll, but I'll nevertheless go through this. And just to put that in context, you must have read a few days ago, there was this news article which came out from a research study that was done. And it talked about how companies in India are investing in cloud technologies at a pace which is 4.5 times that of the rate at which they're investing in traditional technologies. So that just goes to show the importance, and it goes to show that this importance has been recognized by the companies across the board. And in the same study, you would have seen that there is an expectation of around 10 lakh new jobs being created because of the cloud in the next few years till 2022. So that just goes to show the adoption of the cloud that has happened in the market so far, and also the potential that exists to grow even farther and at a much, much higher rate. So with that context, let me just talk a little bit about some of the advantages that NBFCs can get from the cloud. And for those of you who may not be very advanced in your journey, some of these will strike a chord. So if I look at the business that all of you run, essentially it's a function of 4 parameters at a very high level. So you have your cost of funds, and you are generating an income out of those funds. There has to be some loss which happens in every business because there are some bad loans, and then you have your operating costs. So you have to ensure that your cost of funds stays low, your operating cost stays low, your bad loans also stay low, and the income that you generate from the funds, that keeps going up. So when you look at the advantage of the cloud, and when you go through this slide as I talk through this particular illustration, what I would encourage you to do is to think back to how each of these advantages link to those 4 factors which are ultimately affecting your business. So the first one is that the cloud allows you to generate operating expenditure and not capital expenditure. So what you are doing is you are paying for only what you consume, and you pay that only when you consume, either indirectly if you're adopting a solution from solution providers such as Nucleus, or directly if you're using some of the cloud services on your own. This is as opposed to buying a set of servers and having to plan and incurring a high cost right at the outset. The second advantage is economies of scale, and that comes from two factors. The first is because cloud providers like Amazon Web Services serve millions of customers all over the world, this results in lower prices for each and every customer. And when someone like Nucleus uses those resources, they actually are able to pass on some of those benefits to you. And secondly, because of the reason that we are able to see at Amazon what is the latest in technology being implemented and used by millions of customers all around the world, we are able to quickly iterate and come out with new services and new offers that can be used by all of you to help your business. The third one is that you don't have to guess capacity. The high scalability has been acknowledged by all of you as the number one advantage of the cloud. If you talk about speed and agility, I was hoping there would be more response on that. But the biggest benefit of the cloud to many users and customers of AWS is that it allows you to experiment and build at a speed that your end customers demand. You no longer have to, get a development team and get your servers ordered and take weeks and months to do that, but quickly get something deployed, experiment, see if that works or not. If something works, double down on that. If something doesn't work, then you drop that experiment. And that is especially relevant in the NBFC market in India because it's going through such a rapid pace of growth with huge influx of customers onto the digital platforms that it can actually make a difference between survival and flourishing. The fifth advantage is that it allows you to run your business and not your infrastructure. So whether you are a so-called business person or more on the technical side, at the end of the day, you're running a business for your customers and your job is not to run IT. You should leave IT to the specialists in the field, and the cloud allows you to do exactly that. And finally, it allows you to expand your new markets. So you can launch an application with a few clicks and go into new markets. If tomorrow any of you want to expand outside India, want to go to Southeast Asia or other parts of the world, then you can do it very quickly without building a new data center in other parts of the world. So those are the advantages that we see from the cloud. If we move on to the next slide, what I'm going to do is pick out some of the myths that we keep hearing about the cloud. Thankfully, these are fewer every day, but there are still questions. So I'd like to go through each of these myths and hopefully bust all of these by the time I'm done with this slide. So we'll start from the top right corner. And if you look at your screen, the first myth that we often hear is that the cloud is not secure. The reality, however, is very different. The cloud infrastructure, it is built by default to meet requirements of the most security sensitive organizations all over the world. So let me give you some examples. So if you think about the US government, they are using the cloud. If you talk about NASA, which is the US space agency, they are using the cloud. Regulators and stock exchanges, such as FINRA and NASDAQ, they are using the cloud. And of course, lots of financial services organizations globally that we'll talk about a little later. So the cloud is secure by default with the highest standards that you would find in any on-premise environment, and in many cases, it's even more secure. The second myth that we hear about is that if you use the cloud, you lose ownership of your data and then it may move out of India. The reality is very different. The cloud allows you to retain ownership and control over your data because it belongs to you, and you choose where it resides. And that is applicable not just to users like yourselves, that is the NBFCs, but also to the solution providers such as Nucleus. And invariably, when someone is serving the NBFC segment is India, the data will be in the data centers that are within Indian borders. So there is absolutely no risk of the data going out. So from a regulatory perspective, you can be very, very comfortable. The third myth is that you cannot use the cloud because of compliance requirements. And this is something that we sometimes hear from the larger financial institutions, but even from some of the smaller ones. And this is again a result of fear, uncertainty, and doubt that is in the market. The reality here is that there are security assurance programs and audit programs and attestations which guarantee that a cloud service provider such as AWS is compliant with the regulatory requirements and the best practices. So you must have heard of SOC certifications, SOC 1, SOC 2, SOC 3. You would have heard of ISO 27001. You would have heard of PCI DSS for payments. When you use the cloud, you automatically comply with all of these because your cloud security, cloud service provider is going to ensure that they are indeed complying with all of these. The fourth myth is that because your business may have personal data, it may not be for the cloud. Reality again is that the cloud offers you encryption services, which allows you to encrypt data at rest and data in transit to keep it completely safe and secure. A related issue that often comes up is that everyone will have access to the data if it's on the cloud. Reality is very different. There is a feature which is called identity and access management, which allows the end users, i.e. yourselves, to define who has control over what data. And until the administrators in your organizations change it, there is no way anybody who's not supposed to have access to the data can get access to the data. And finally, there's a myth that you cannot control the deletion of your data in case you don't want it to be there anymore. Reality again is very different. When you delete data, there are multiple steps that cloud providers take to ensure that it is deleted and it stays deleted. So those were some of the myths, and I hope I have been able to, over the last few minutes, get you comfortable that these are in reality myths and not what is out there. So let's move on to the next slide now. And I have focused on some of the financial institutions worldwide that are adopting the cloud today and working very closely with organizations. And in this example, of course, all of these I have shown are customers of AWS. And I'm not going to talk about the HDFC Group, for example, or the Bajaj Group in India who are already using the cloud, but I'm going to talk a little bit about a few examples from around the world so that you get a feel of the kind of organizations that have already adopted the cloud. So let's take a few flavors. The first flavor is bank. So if you look at banks, the largest banks in the world, whether it's DBS out of Singapore, who also have operations in India, NAB, which is the largest corporate bank in Australia, banks like BBVA and Santander out of Europe, Capital One in the US, and a couple of other banks who are larger than any of these banks that I mentioned, but we cannot name because the news is not public. They're all using the cloud. Something which is closer to the business that you are running is probably the startup banks. So the startup or challenger banks, whether it's in Europe or the UK, like Oak North, Starling, or Monzo, or someone like Japan Net Bank in Japan, and even some of them in emerging markets, are all using AWS. And then you have payment companies, you have online wealth managers such as Betterment, you have stock exchanges like the London Stock Exchange and the NASDAQ, you have private equity investors such as Carlyle, insurance companies, whether it's Suncorp or Mutual Guardian, all of them are using AWS at the moment. So that was just a snapshot. And if you then move on to the next slide, I'm going to very quickly look at a couple of examples which will show you what the key use cases are for digital lending on the cloud. So the first one is digital channels. So what the cloud allows you to do very easily and very well is quickly get digital channels up and running and scale them very rapidly up or down depending on customer demand. So whether it's a web-based service, whether it's a mobile platform or chatbots, cloud-based contact centers, and looking into the future, it could be any kind of intelligent device that is either owned by you or you have access to in your home or office. All of that can be easily put onto the cloud and used very effectively. The second one is data analytics. So increasingly what we are seeing from customers is that they have huge amounts of not just structured data, but unstructured data as well. And these structured and unstructured data may be lying, especially for those of you who are running reasonably large businesses across different business lines. It may be lying across different silos and not talking to each other. So what the cloud allows you to do very easily is to take structured data and unstructured data, put them into what is called a data lake, and then run queries on that data lake to visualize the results and show you insights. The next slide will show you another couple of use cases which are very important. The first, of course, is core systems. So every transaction that happens, every record of customer activity, if you build that on the cloud and then the rules engine in these core systems, they can trigger specific services and applications, which in turn can be delivered to end customers or your employees internally. That can be run much more robust in a much more robust manner on the cloud than if you were to do it on premise. And finally, you have artificial intelligence and machine learning. So whether it's for compliance, surveillance, or fraud detection, which is going to be increasingly important as we see in other parts of the world, whether it is document processing, you have a document which is in a format that's not electronic, and how do you get the data accurately into an electronic format and normalize the data and then gain insights from that data, or even product recommendations based on what might be appropriate for a specific customer at any point in time. All of those can be done best on the cloud. So those were the 4 use cases that I wanted to talk about. And before I hand over to Sarbapreet, I just want to spend 1 minute on this particular slide, which is essentially an invitation for all of you who are builders. And when I say builders, it's not just developers, builders, everyone who's building a new business using technology. And my invitation to you is that those of you who haven't done it already, to embrace the cloud. And depending on how large a business you're running, what kind of capabilities you have in-house, or you want to outsource, you adapt accordingly. So those of you who are starting out, or those of you who want to come to the market very rapidly, I think the best way to go is you choose a market leading solution such as that from Nucleus Software, and they have already built it and built it well for AWS and is running at dozens of customers already all over India, and you use that. Some of you who are a bit larger or are more advanced, you might have in-house resources, and what those kind of customers can do is, alongside using solutions from the likes of Nucleus, if there are certain workloads, let's say you want to run HR and admin system on the cloud, that you could look at, probably doing in-house or using someone else. But whatever way you look at it, I think if you embrace the cloud in partnership with companies like Nucleus, that's going to give you an edge, and it's going to give an edge in all 4 aspects. It's going to help you get higher income from your funds and grow at a faster pace. It's going to help you reduce the cost of your funds. It's going to help you actually lower the risk of loans going bad, and it's going to help you lower the cost the operating cost of running your business. And that's what's going to make the difference between who's going to end up as leaders and who's going to end up otherwise. So with that, I would like to hand it back to Sarvabhi.
Thanks, Nilanchuk. I'll just run through a couple of slides and talk about a little bit about a cloud-based offering. So we generally we cater to end-to-end loans life cycle on absolutely on cloud. So if you see, there are 6 boxes over here, circles rather, which caters to, the first one is the origination one, which caters to complete sourcing life cycle from lead management to dispersal. This is a real big ground for innovation, control, and governance. As I mentioned earlier, customer can create their own products, rules, policies on absolute real-time basis. The second one is the loan servicing module, which is a complete backbone of lending system. This caters to various functions post dispersal, like accruals, payments, rescheduling, closures, NPA management, provisioning, and so on and so forth. So basically till the loan closure. The third one is the one which caters to delinquent loans. It is a wide bouquet of functionalities, whether it is customer contacting, managing promises of customers in case of delinquency, recontracting with them, or having a recourse like legal or repossession of items. The fourth one is the state-of-the-art data and analytical tool which we have. This looks at the trends of the current data. We can create models over it, learn from these models, change the models on real-time basis, and then this also gives absolute early warning signs if your portfolio is not going in the right direction, and you can apply these learnings back to your credit evaluation or collection management. The fifth one rather, is the mobility solution, which is basically for the feet on street, whether it is customer, prospect. This caters to self-serving apps for sales, prospects, or customer, very, very closely integrated with other modules which I just talked about. And the last one is the enterprise content management. It's complete document management system which caters to your various management needs. A little bit about Nucleus. Rich 3 decades of experience in lending domain. We have 150 banks and institutions across 50 countries. As far as customer base is concerned, we have seen the fastest growth in our cloud segment in the last 1 year. Almost every month we are activating 2 cloud customers on our platform. Very frankly, every week we are launching a product in each of our customers. So on this note, I just want to thank everybody, and I open the forum for Q&A. I'll pass on to moderator Nitin. Over to you, please.
So we have the first question, and I think Sabpreet, you may want to take this. Can a startup or fintech company adopt the solution easily?
Yeah, of course. The solution caters to startups actually, and whether they are normal brick and mortar or they are fintechs or medium and large size NBFC and HFCs. Rather, we were wondering whether people would be reserved in adopting clouds. Rather, we saw fintech startups, NBFCs, HFCs. I mean, they have gone overboard to adopt this technology, and very frankly, all our cloud customers are actually NBFCs and HFCs, out of which 50% of the customers are startups, because it gives them agility, affordability, and best of the technology without any capex. And we have also introduced very innovative pricing models, so that generally being business linked, so that as customer grows, we also grow, and there could be a break even at a later stage, but that's a real sense of partnership.
Thanks, Saprit. There's another interesting question, which I think Nilanshu, you may want to take. You also referred to it in your slide. How do you ensure that customer data is secured on the cloud?
Yeah, so what we do at AWS is that we have the highest levels of security. And that starts right from the data centers themselves, which have the same or better levels of physical security than any on-premise data center would have. And when you then go up the layers and talk about the security from a software perspective, as I mentioned in my presentation some time ago, we allow customers to encrypt data, encrypt at rest, and encrypt in transit. We have strict identity and access management mechanisms, which allow customers to control who's getting access to what kind of data. We have strict monitoring and logging mechanisms, and all of that is visible to the admin in any company or any customer that is using, as to what kind of resources are being utilized and what kind of services are being used by whom within the organization. And finally, all of these are not things that we are saying or I am saying on this webinar, but these are actually audited and certified by independent organizations such as the ISO. So we have the ISO 27001 certification, among others, which deals with cloud security. The SOC 1, SOC 2, SOC 3 certifications, PCI DSS, and several other certifications which are specific to different countries. What we also do in most major countries of the world is we help our customers on request to show them with a mapping as to how a certain regulation that a regulator in a country is asking for is satisfied by the AWS services. So if you talk about a certain set of guidelines in any country, including India, we can actually sit down and work with our customer to demonstrate how a certain guideline is being adhered to when you use AWS. And those materials in turn can be shared with regulators. So you have the physical security, then you have the security from a software perspective, all of these certified and audited by independent third parties. And then if our customers at any point in time have to interface with regulators, we help them in kind of demonstrating the security features.
Yeah, Nitin, I just want to add, as a consumer of these cloud services, frankly, with whatever survey I've done, it's absolutely open secret that a large number of hacks happen internally, frankly, in the organizations. And so what should we do in this case? We just rely on the industry experts, which is Amazon over here, and who have the right kind of sophistication, rather more than what we can think of, and they upgrade their security principles every day in real time. And I think that gives a lot of comfort to us as a consumer of these cloud services, and this also gives a lot of comfort to our customers, because we are relying on best in the game.
Thanks, Harpreet. Thanks, Nilanshu. There is another question from the audience which has come up, Nilanshuk. So they're saying that with the recent change in regulations regarding data to be stored specifically in India, how does this change the game for cloud adoption?
So it doesn't change actually. That's the short answer. Reason being that the data that is going to be stored in the cloud for anyone dialing into this call and representing an NBFC, that will be stored in India because AWS has data centers in India. So the data is not going to go out of India unless you want to. And if you don't want, it's totally up to you, and it can stay in India. So for cloud service providers such as AWS who have data centers in India, this is not going to impact usage of the cloud.
Thanks, Nilanshuk. Uh, Another question which has come up is cloud technology and the overall infrastructure reliable for doing business in remote areas in India? Sir, do you want to take this?
Yeah, why not? Very frankly, when we onboarded our first customer, which is Shubham, which I just talked about, I was absolutely amazed by the name of the cities where cloud was being accessed. These cities were absolutely unheard of. 50% of the cities I have to actually Google to find out which cities they are. And so I mean, I think there are a lot of plays over here. Government is playing a very good role. People are people are playing a good role because they are getting internet savvy. As I said, there are 450 million are already smartphone users. So I think I haven't seen any issue as far as this question is concerned in I mean, in last 2, 3, 4 years, frankly. And another point which I just want to make is that we also have some of as you see, we have apps on mobility which are any which ways lighter. There are certain functions in these apps which we also allow either the end user or the customer to do transact offline, so that in case of any internet issues or anything, they can still work on that.
Thanks, Harpreet. Next question which has come in is, I think, pertaining to the lending solution that we spoke about. Are there any specific line of businesses that this solution is recommended for?
So, very frankly, we have a whole range of line of businesses in our product, whether it is housing, auto, lab, agri, education loans, consumer durable, credit card management, and so on and so forth. And plus, we are also aware of what we don't have, frankly, and that is where the product plays a big role, because every release which we have after every 6 months has an additional LOB which we were not catering to. So if you are not having anything today as far as the end customer or the customer is concerned or Nucleus is concerned, you'll get it in subsequent releases. So this gives a lot of comfort to our customers. But as of today, we are catering to a huge range of line of businesses.
Thanks, Harpreet. Uh, One more question which has come in. Does microfinance business, can also use this platform?
Thanks, Nitin. I'm very encouraged to hear these questions. Frankly, they are very pertinent questions. Yes, we have a microfinance module altogether, which have very specific needs of microfinance organizations. We have launched MFIN, I think 6 to 8 months before, which is specifically dealing with microfinance needs of customers. So we Microsoft microfinance company have various different specific needs like self-liability groups, daily, weekly repayments, which we are doing frankly in the latest release.
Nilanshuk, one final question is coming. It says that the banks can't audit the data center. So how is this kind of scenario taken care of in this particular solution and approach?
Sure. So what we do is, depending on the kind of legal agreement that we have with our end customers, certain regulated end customers, such as banks, can actually take advantage of requests from regulators. And what we do is, depending on certain conditions being satisfied, we are happy to explain and demonstrate some of these technologies and some of these issues to regulators directly. I think if you look at what the policy is from Amazon Web Services at the moment, is the reason we don't allow our customers to access the data centers directly is because if one customer is going to a data center, what she's doing effectively is endangering the security of thousands of other customers. And as when a second customer visits the data center, and the third customer visits the data center, and the fourth customer visits the data center, what would happen is you are risking even more the security of the thousands of other customers who are not going there. So because of security best practices, and to ensure that the interests of all the customers are safeguarded, we not only not allow customers to visit data centers, but we do not even disclose the exact location of a data center. So if we talk about Mumbai, we say that we have a region in Mumbai, and we have availability zones, which are a collection of data centers. So we have more than one data center in the Mumbai region, but the exact location, even that is not known to anybody.
Thanks, Nilanshuk. Those are all the questions that we have received.
Thank you, Nitin. So if there are no other questions, I would like to again thank all of you who joined the webinar from all over the country. It's a pleasure and the privilege to host this webinar, and hopefully between me and Sarbapreet, what we could do is give you a little more detail in terms of the power of digital lending and how a technology-led solution can help your business, how a cloud-led solution can help you grow your business and give you a competitive advantage in the market. So thanks for all of those questions, and we look forward to hearing from you in future.
Thank you, everybody. You have my email ID on this slide. Please reach out to me for any further questions related to cloud, lending, or any of the use cases which I talked about. Thank you so much.